The night sky over Earth was quiet to quiet. People were asleep, unaware that in the cold silence of space, something enormous had arrived. It began with a sound that wasn't a sound, at all a deep vibration that rattled the bones. Lights flickered across every city, every home. Screens went black, then filled with one image. A towering alien figure stared down from the broadcast. Its skin was pale silver, its eyes burning like molten gold. Behind it stood soldiers in black armor, their faces hidden. The voice was cold, without emotion. People of Earth, the Empire commands you to kneel. You will submit your armies, your fleets, and your resources. Refuse, and your world will be reduced to ash. The message repeated in every language. No one could turn it off. It was on every phone, every TV, even the holographic billboards in crowded streets. Above the planet, dozens of massive ships blocked the moon. They were so large that even from the ground, they looked like dark mountains floating in the stars. In an underground base beneath the Rocky Mountains, world leaders gathered. Generals, scientists, and diplomats sat in a circle around a large table. The air was heavy with fear. President Hale of the United North stood first. "They're not bluffing," he said quietly. "We've all seen the scans. Their weapons could level our cities in minutes." The British Prime Minister shook her head. "We cannot fight them. We must negotiate. If we resist, they'll destroy us." From the far end of the table, Captain Marcus Vale leaned forward. His uniform was simple black with a single silver stripe across the shoulder, but his presence filled the room. Vale was a war hero, the kind who had been in battles no one spoke about in public. Negotiate. Vale's voice was calm, but it carried weight. "The Empire doesn't make deals. I've fought their kind before. If we kneel once, we'll kneel forever." A silence fell over the room. General Reyes tapped a small control pad, and a holographic image appeared above the Tabola fleet of black warships, hidden far beyond Neptune. The ships looked like shadows carved into steel, their hulls lined with railguns, missile bays, and something new, something no one outside this room had ever seen. "This," Reyes said, "is the Black Fleet, built in secret over 20 years, designed to fight the impossible war we hoped would never come." One of the diplomats frowned. "That fleet is experimental, unproven. We can't risk everything on it." Vale stood now, his voice steady. "We have no choice. The Empire thinks we're weak because we've stayed out of their wars. They think we're afraid. It's time they learn the truth." President Hale looked around the table, reading the faces of every leader. Fear, doubt, anger, and, slowly, resolved above the base. The alien ships moved closer, their shadows crawling over Earth's surface. The Empire's message came again. 1 hour, kneel or burn. Far out in the darkness, beyond Pluto, the Black Fleet sat in silence. Crews stood ready, their hands on controls, eyes fixed on the command screens. They didn't know if the order would come, but they hoped it would. Vale opened a secure channel to the fleet. His voice carried across the void. "This is Captain Marcus Vale. Earth has been given an ultimatum. We have decided our answer." He looked at President Hale, who gave a single, firm nod. Vale spoke into the calm, his tone sharper now. "Black Fleet, prepare for launch." The order rippled through every ship. Engines roared to life, cutting through centuries of silence. The black holes lit up with thin red lines, like veins of fire running across their armor. In one hangar, pilots strapped into fighters designed for both space and atmosphere combat. Engineers moved like shadows, checking power cores and loading ammunition. In the flagship Eclipse, Vale walked the command bridge, watching as the crew moved with precision. He stopped beside Lieutenant Kara Voss, his second in command. "Once we move," she said, "there's no going back." Vale gave her a small, grim smile. "That's the idea." Back on Earth, people gathered in the streets, looking up at the sky. They saw strange streaks of light smaller than the alien ships, but moving faster, more precise. Some didn't know what they were. Others recognized them from rumors whispered in dark corners of the net. The Black Fleet was real, and it was coming. Inside the alien command ship, the Imperial commander received a transmission. A human face appeared on his screen veil. "You have one chance," Vale said. "Leave our system now." The commander laughed, a deep, metallic sound. "You dare threaten the Empire with your toys?" Vale didn't blink. "We don't start wars, but we finish them." The transmission ended. In the underground war room, the leaders watched live feeds from deep space drones. Black Fleet ships moved into formation, their silhouettes blending with the void. General Reyes leaned toward the president. "If we strike first, we might force them to back down." Hale shook his head. "We strike to end this, not to scare them." Far above, the Empire's ships began charging their weapons. Blue light bled from their massive cannons, casting a ghostly glow over the Earth. On the Eclipse, Vale stood at the center of the bridge. "Set course," he ordered. "Straight for the blockade." The Black Fleet surged forward, cutting through the dark like a wave of shadows. The engines burned red, the soundless fire of war in the vacuum. In that moment, humanity had made its choice. They would not kneel, and somewhere deep in the galaxy, the Empire would soon learn what that choice truly meant. The blackness beyond. Neptune was silent until the first spark lit the dark. One by one, massive ships came alive. Their hulls were darker than space, drinking in the faint starlight. Long, crimson energy lines ran across their sides, like the marks of a predator preparing to strike. In the flagship Eclipse, Captain Marcus Vale stood at the center of the bridge. Around him, the crew moved with sharp precision, their voices steady, but low. Each knew what was coming. Each understood there would be no turning back. "Status report," Vale said. Lieutenant Keravos scanned her console. "All ships report green across the board. Weapons armed, shields holding, engines hungry." Vale's lips curved in the smallest of smiles. "Good, let them eat." The Black Fleet was a myth to most people on Earth. Few knew it existed, fewer knew what it was capable of. Built in the shadow of Neptune's frozen rings, it had been humanity's answer to an unspoken fear that one day someone would come for them. It wasn't the largest fleet in the galaxy, but it was different. Human engineers had taken stolen alien tech and twisted it into something the galaxy had never seen before. Railguns with magnetic coils the length of skyscrapers, missile silos that fired projectiles faster than light, cloaking fields that could hide an entire battleship from scanners until it was too late. In the crew barracks of the destroyer Vigilance, Sergeant Aaron Cade sat sharpening a blade knot because he needed to, but because it kept his hands steady. Across from him, a young pilot named Tessa leaned forward. "Do you think we can win?" she asked. Cade didn't look up. "We're not here to win. We're here to make sure they never try this again." The alien empire had been watching too. Far beyond the human system, in the Imperial High Command chamber, A group of alien commanders stood around a glowing hologram of the Sol system. One of them, a scaled reptilian named Crashtech, hissed in disbelief. "They are moving ships. From beyond Neptune. These are not civilian vessels." Another commander, tall and insect-like, clicked its mandibles. "Send word to the Emperor. The Death Worlders are mobilizing." The message was sent, marked urgent. Back on the Eclipse, the bridge was dim except for the glow of data screens. Vale watched the tactical display as the Black Fleet formed a spearhead formation, stealth fields active. Kara reported. The fleet shimmered, their outlines bending and vanishing into the dark. On any scanner, they were gone, just empty space where death was moving. Inside the communications bay, encrypted signals pulsed between ships. They weren't just heading for the Empire's blockade, they were heading through it. The plan was simple but dangerous: pierce the blockade before the Empire could react, then strike at their supply lines, leaving them blind and hungry. In the medical bay, Dr. Elara Quinn checked supplies. She wasn't a soldier, but she had been with the fleet since its earliest trials. Her hands were steady, but her voice was quiet when she spoke to the AI assistant beside her. "Project casualties," she said. A soft, mechanical voice replied. "If enemy fleet numbers are as predicted, 42%, Elara closed her eyes for a moment. "Then we'll save the 58%. Vale opened a private channel to President Hale back on Earth. "The fleet is in motion," he said. Hale's face appeared on the small holographic panel. "The Empire's ships are moving closer to orbit. They've issued a final warning. Minutes to surrender." Vale's eyes hardened. "Then they'll have their answer in 25. Beyond Pluto's orbit, the first enemy scout ships appeared. They were sleek and silver, moving like hunting animals. But when they scanned for the Black Fleet, they saw nothing, only empty stars. One scout pilot growled in frustration. "They can't just vanish." The reply came too late. From the void, a railgun slug the size of a truck tore through the scout ship, splitting it in half before the pilot could even scream. The remaining scout tried to flee, but a missile locked on, silent and invisible, before it detonated in a flash brighter than the sun. The Empire now knew the Black Fleet was real, and it was hunting. Inside the Imperial command ship near Jupiter, panic began to grow. Officers shouted orders, repositioning the blockade. But the humans weren't charging directly, they were weaving through asteroid fields, slingshotting around moons, using every piece of terrain like it was their home field, because it was. Vale stood over the navigation table. "Next jump in 20 seconds, Kara said. Vale nodded. "Good. Let's introduce ourselves properly." The Black Fleet exited warp directly in front of the nearest blockade formation. Before the aliens could react, human weapons lit the dark. Railgun fire punched through shields like paper. Stealth torpedoes ripped apart cruisers from the inside. Drones swarmed the edges, disabling engines before vanishing again. The alien commander's voice was full of disbelief. They're not supposed to have this kind of firepower." On the Vigilance, Cade stood at a turret, his hands gripping the controls as he unleashed a storm of fire. "This is for Earth," he roared, though no one outside his ship could hear him. In less than 5 minutes, half the blockade was gone. The rest scattered, sending urgent cries for reinforcements. But Vale wasn't finished. He opened a channel to every remaining enemy ship. His face appeared on their screens. "You told us to kneel," he said, voice low and cold. "We don't kneel, we stand. And you're about to find out why." The transmission cut. and the Black Fleet surged forward toward the Empire's inner lines. Asterisk. The cold light of a distant star spilled over the wreckage of the Empire's outer blockade. Broken alien cruisers drifted silently, their burning hulls casting orange glows into the void. The remains of the battle hung like ghosts in space. But Captain Marcus Vale knew this was only the beginning. On the bridge of the Eclipse, the crew watched their scanners carefully. The Black Fleet had punched a hole in the blockade, but now the real fight would begin. Multiple warp signatures incoming. Kara Voss reported, her fingers dancing over the console. Heavy ships, War Dreadnought class. Vale's jaw tightened. The Empire is sending their big guns. Across the system, the Empire's main fleet emerged from warp. 20 massive dreadnoughts, each the size of a city, formed a wall of steel and fire. Escort ships moved like predators around them, their weapons already locking onto human targets. At the center of the formation was the flagship Borath, commanded by Admiral Zarek, a veteran of dozens of planetary conquests. His voice boomed over the comms. Humans, your resistance ends here. Lay down your arms or be erased. Vale's reply was immediate. We don't lay down arms, Admiral. We use them. The Black Fleet shifted into attack formation. Every ship moved with sharp precision, their black hulls absorbing the starlight until they were shadows in motion. On the destroyer Vigilance, Sergeant Aaron Cade strapped himself into the main turret controls. Finally, he muttered, a real fight. In the medbay of the Eclipse, Dr. Elara Quinn checked her supplies again. She hated these moments, the silent seconds before the first shot, when everyone pretended not to be afraid. She looked at the young medic beside her. Stay ready, we'll be busy soon. The silence broke. From the Vorath, the Empire fired first massive plasma lances screamed across the void, glowing blue-white. The Black Fleet scattered, each ship breaking formation to avoid the beams. Vale's voice cut through the chaos. Return fire. Railguns unleashed a storm of tungsten slugs, each moving at a fraction below light speed. The first volley tore through the shields of an Imperial cruiser, punching holes straight through its armored hull. The second volley reduced it to drifting debris. Kara's voice was calm but quick. 2 enemy dreadnoughts have lost shields. Targeting coordinates locked. Vale nodded. All ships concentrate fire. Bring them down. The Vigilance swooped in close to one of the massive dreadnoughts. Cade's turret roared, shredding the enemy's engine array. Sparks and molten metal burst into the void. Without engines, the dreadnought began to drift helplessly, its weapons still firing but missing wide. On the Eclipse, Vale's eyes stayed locked on the tactical display. Every move mattered. Every second wasted could cost hundreds of lives. Inside the vault, Admiral Zarek watched the battle unfold with growing disbelief. Their technology, it's faster than ours. Stronger. Where did they get it? His aide, a smaller alien with pale green skin, whispered, they built it themselves, Admiral. From what I hear, they learned it from watching us. Eyes narrowed. Then we'll teach them fear instead. The Empire changed tactics, focusing all fire on the Eclipse. Dozens of plasma bolts streaked toward Vale's flagship, Kara. Evasive pattern Sigma, Vale ordered. The Eclipse rolled hard to the right, its black armor absorbing partial hits while its shields flared. A stealth torpedo bay opened under the ship, launching 6 invisible warheads directly into the enemy formation. Seconds later, 3 Imperial destroyers erupted in silent fireballs. Far from the main clash, two Black Fleet corvettes Shadow Wing and Raptor slipped past the battle entirely. Their mission wasn't to fight it, was to strike at the Empire's supply carriers lurking behind the main fleet. Without those supplies, the dreadnoughts would be blind and starving in days. In less than 10 minutes, the carriers were gone, their wreckage scattering into the void. But the fight was far from over. The Vorath surged forward, its forward cannons glowing. Vale knew what was coming. Planet-killer weapons designed to wipe entire cities in one shot. Target their cannon. Arrays. Vale barked. Every ship in the Black Fleet focused fire. The space between them turned into a blinding storm of rail slugs, missiles, and beam fire. The Vorath's shields flared white-hot, then shattered. Cade saw the gap. Time to end it. From the Vigilance, he launched a heavy, armor-piercing slug. It tore into the Voratha's side, breaking through the reactor core. A second later, the Empire's flagship was gonna nothing but fragments drifting through the dark. Silence fell over the Cums. The remaining Imperial ships hesitated, unsure whether to fight or flee. Vale didn't give them time to decide. Push forward, he ordered. No survivors in combat range. In minutes, the remaining dreadnoughts were reduced to debris or fled into warp. When it was over, the battlefield was littered with wreckage. Human ships moved among the ruins, rescuing survivors both human and alien. Some of the rescued aliens looked at the humans with shock, others with gratitude. On the Eclipse, Kara turned to Vale. First blood is ours. Vale nodded, but his voice was grim. This was just their forward force. The real fight is still ahead. The Black Fleet didn't stop to celebrate. The moment the last enemy dreadnought vanished into warp, Captain Marcus Vale gave the next order. Set course for the Imperial core, he said. His voice was calm, but every person on the Eclipse knew this was the most dangerous order they had ever received. Lieutenant Kara Voss looked up from her console. Sir, that's their stronghold. It will be crawling with fleets, planetary defenses, and exactly, Vale cut in. They won't expect us to strike so soon. We don't give them time to rebuild. The fleet slipped into stealth mode again, their black hulls vanishing into the void. They moved through space like shadows, weaving between asteroid belts and drifting through nebula clouds. On the destroyer Vigilance, Sergeant Aaron Cade watched the stars drift past. Feels wrong, he muttered to the gunner beside him. Like we're swimming straight into a predator's mouth. The gunner grinned. Then let's make sure we're the bigger predator. Inside the Empire's capital system, the sky was busy with traffic merchant ships, military patrols, cargo haulers moving supplies to war fronts. No one saw the danger sliding silently toward them. The Black Fleet emerged from the shadow of a moon, their stealth field still active. From this distance, the Imperial capital planet was breathtaking, a vast world wrapped in golden orbital rings. Its surface dotted with shining cities. Kara studied the tactical map. Their defense grid is massive. Shield satellites, beam platforms, minefields. If they spot us, we won't last 2 minutes. Vale's eyes stayed on the planet. Then we don't get spotted. The mission was not to destroy the capital, but to cripple its ability to fight. Vale's plan was simple. Strike the Imperial fleet yards and weapons foundries, then vanish before the enemy could react. Without those, the Empire's war machine would slow to a crawl. The Shadow Wing and Raptor, two of the fleet's smallest ships, went ahead to scout. They moved through the tight spaces between the orbital rings, mapping patrol routes and finding weak points in the defenses. In one narrow corridor, A patrol frigate passed dangerously close. The Shadow Wing's crew held their breath as the alien ship's scanners swept over them. The stealth field held. The frigate moved on, unaware it had brushed past death. Once the path was clear, Vale gave the signal. The Black Fleet surged forward, silent as the void. Within minutes, they reached the Imperial Fleet Yards, a colossal space station the size of a small moon, filled with hundreds of warships under construction. Kara's eyes widened. If we destroy this, it'll take them decades to rebuild. Vale's voice was steady. Then, let's get started. The first volley from the Black Fleet was devastating. Railgun rounds smashed through dry docks, tearing apart unfinished battleships. Missiles exploded in chain reactions, sending fragments spinning into the void. The Empire's defenses roared to life. Beam cannons lit up the dark, scattering across the Black Fleet's positions. 2 human corvettes took heavy hits, Swans spinning out of formation, flames trailing from its hull. "Get them out of here," Vale ordered. The Eclipse moved to shield the damaged corvette, taking the brunt of incoming fire. From the Vigilance, Cade targeted the station's reactor conduits. His shots struck true, and a massive fireball tore through the heart of the fleet yards. The shockwave rattled ships for kilometers around. "They won't be building any more dreadnoughts," Cade muttered, a grim smile on his face. But the victory was short-lived. Kara's voice was sharp. Multiple warp signatures inbound. Big ones. On the tactical display, the incoming fleet appeared like a wall of red markers, hundreds of ships. All headed straight for them. Vale's mind raced. They couldn't fight here, not this close to the capital. Not against those numbers. "Phase 2, he said. "Hit the weapons foundries, then pull out." The Black Fleet split into 2 groups. Vale led half toward the weapons foundries 3. Massive orbital facilities producing the Empire's deadliest cannons. The other half laid down covering fire, forcing the first wave of enemy reinforcements to slow. As the Eclipse approached the foundries, Imperial defense turrets swiveled toward them. Kara fired the ship's main railgun. The first foundry's control tower exploded, sending burning debris into the rest of the station. The second foundry fell minutes later, its reactor going critical after a barrage of stealth torpedoes. But the third foundry was different. Its shields held strong, glowing a bright crimson under the constant barrage. Kara cursed under her breath. "We can't crack it in time." Vale stared at the shield readings, then made a decision. "We don't need to destroy it. We just need to make it useless." He ordered a precise strike on the foundry's supply docks. Without raw materials, the foundry would be an empty shell. The Black Fleet regrouped, but the enemy fleet was closing fast. Plasma beams streaked past, some striking dangerously close. Vale ordered an immediate retreat vector, the ships diving back into stealth mode as they fled through the chaos. Behind them, the Imperial capital burned in patches, its shipyards crippled, its weapon production in ruins. In the Emperor's throne room, the news arrived in shattered fragments. Fleet yards destroyed, foundries crippled. Enemy escaped. The Emperor rose from his throne slowly. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with cold rage. "Summon the Doomsday Legion," he said. "I want the Black Fleet broken, and their homeworld in flames." On the Eclipse, Vale stood at the viewing window, watching the stars slide past. Kara joined him. "We hurt them," she said quietly. Vale nodded, but his expression was dark. "Yes, and now they'll come for us with everything they have." The warning came in broken transmissions. Fragments of words, static, screams. Across the Black Fleets comes one phrase repeated: the Doomsday Legion has arrived. In the deep cold of space, the first of them emerged from warp. They weren't ships in the normal sense. They were colossal moving fortresses, each the size of a small moon. Their armor was thick enough to shrug off most weapons. Spikes of black metal jutted from their hulls, glowing faintly red. Inside the Eclipse, the crew stared at the tactical display in silence. Kara Voss broke it first. Those things aren't just here to win. They're here to erase us. Vale didn't answer right away. His eyes studied the incoming shapes. He knew the truth: these machines could burn Earth to cinders in hours. The Emperor had made his move. From his throne room on the capital world, he watched a massive display showing the Legion's advance. The alien generals stood beside him. Strike. Earth first, one suggested. Force their fleet to break formation and run home. The Emperor shook his head slowly. No. We end the fleet here, in the black. Their people must watch them fall. Vale gathered his senior officers in the Eclipse's war room. The holotable glowed, showing the enemy formation. We can't face them head-on, Kara said bluntly. No, Vale agreed. We hit their weak points if they have any. If not, he looked around the table. Then we make some. The Black Fleet moved. They split into 3 attack wings, diving through asteroid belts and using every scrap of cover. The Legions. Weapons lit up the dark, each shot powerful enough to vaporize smaller ships. One Black Fleet frigate, Iron Dawn, was caught in a direct beam. It vanished in a flash, leaving nothing behind. Cade's voice came through the comms, furious. That was Erin's ship. Vale's voice was steady. Then let's make them pay for it. The first wave of Black Fleet strikes focused on the Legion's escort ships, smaller destroyers and cruisers guarding the massive fortresses. Railguns tore through their engines, missiles found reactor cores, and cloaked drones sliced through hull plating. But the Legion didn't slow. One of the fortress ships, Oblivion's Crown, turned toward the Eclipse. Its main cannon began to glow, charging for a full power shot. Kara's eyes went wide. If that hits, Vale didn't wait. Full, evasive, launch, counterstrike. A swarm of stealth torpedoes streaked toward the fortress's cannon array. The first few were destroyed by point defense lasers, but one found its mark. The explosion ripped across the cannon's barrel, forcing the massive weapon offline. In the chaos, the Raptor and Shadow Wing made their move. Using the cover of drifting wreckage, they dove toward the Legion's command, Fortress the Thronebreaker. If they could disable its control nexus, the entire formation might fall into disarray. The Raptor reached the fortress first, planting shaped charges along its communications spire. The explosions shattered its command link, causing the Legion's ships to move in confusion. Vale seized the moment. All ships target their engines. Keep them dead in the water. The Black Fleet unleashed everything. The void was lit by streaks of red, blue, and white as weapons fire crisscrossed between giants. Cade, now manning the Vigilance's heaviest railgun, lined up a perfect shot. For Erin, he whispered. The slug smashed into one fortress's reactor core, triggering a chain reaction that tore it apart from within. The blast was so large it lit up the entire sector like a false sunrise in the Imperial capital. Alarms filled the throne room. A trembling officer reported 2 fortresses destroyed, command nexus disrupted. Our Legion is silence. The Emperor roared. But even as he shouted, Vale's voice came through on an open channel broadcast. Across the Empire's networks, your legion is burning. Your fleets are broken. This ends now. The Eclipse punched through the last line of defense and entered the capital's orbit. The Black Fleet followed, battered but unbroken. The planet's surface gleamed below them, its golden cities reflecting. The fire of the battle above Dot Vale opened a direct channel to the Imperial Palace. This is Captain Marcus Vale of Earth. Stand down, or we finish what we started. The Emperor's image appeared on the Eclipse's main screen. His golden eyes glared, but Vale could see something else behind them. Doubt. You dare come to my world? The Emperor growled. I dare, Vale said. And I win. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the Emperor slowly rose from his throne. He stepped forward until the camera caught him in full view, and he knelt not in surrender to Marcus. Vale, not in loyalty to Earth, but in recognition acknowledging that the age of the Empire's fear had ended. Across the galaxy, alien worlds watched the broadcast in shock. Some cheered openly. Others whispered the new name that would haunt the Empire forever. Deathwalders. The Black Fleet didn't stay. Vale knew the fight wasn't over. It never truly was. But the message had been sent, carved into the stars themselves. Earth would never kneel.